Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again to the Wrestling with Story podcast. What happened for July 17th, 2024, AEW Dynamite, 250th episode. Holy crap, guys. Holy crap. What an episode. First off, I'm Joshua Hale Fialkov, writer, producer, television, animation, all that stuff. And I love wrestling, and I talk about it in graphic detail, sometimes too much, sometimes not enough. You can follow me here. I'm on YouTube, obviously, at Wrestling with Story. You can follow me on Instagram, Wrestling with Story. Follow me on Twitter, at Josh Fialkov. And I do live streaming at Twitch, at Wrestling with Story. And also on YouTube on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then this podcast as well. And videos also 3 times a week at YouTube. I think that's everything. I think I got through all that pretty darn quick for a change. I'm getting better at this. And let us get to what is quite possibly, I don't want to exaggerate here, guys, but probably the best Dynamite ever. That was... redonkulous. Redonkulous? Ridiculoso? Rabloculous? Holy freaking crap. So, I can't imagine you don't know already, but that show opened with an hour-long match between MJF, Maxwell Jacob frickin' Friedman, and Will Ospreay for the international title. That was an absolute masterpiece. It had everything. It had Chekhov's table, as it's known. It had a little girl beating the crap out of MJF. It had multiple styles clashes. They traded Crossroads. It was really... I don't want to exaggerate, but it was something sensationally special. It was interesting. First of all, there was a bunch of people in live stream with me tonight, and I was like genuinely vibrating while watching it. It was that good. Just something so incredibly special about that match. Really, I just can't even begin to express how dynamic and how thrilling from top to bottom this match was. Really just something to call it special, I don't think does it justice. Really, if for some reason you didn't watch it or thought you could skip it or that I would be able to do it justice in words, I am wrong. You are wrong. You should watch it. I actually watched it not once but twice. I watched an hour-long wrestling match twice. So I watched it live with the chat, with my live stream. And then once I got through the whole episode, I went inside, and my wife is a huge MJF mark. And she's not crazy about him as a heel, I think. I think she fell in love with him during the Brochacho stuff. But I was like, listen, you need to watch this. But I also did not tell her it was an hour long. I just told her, you should watch this. It's the best match I've possibly ever seen. That's all I gave her. No, not to set her expectations too high. And we sat down to watch it, and watching her watch it was really a unique experience because she was also vibrating the whole time. Like, she was exploding with every single false finish, with every pin, every turnaround, just every moment of this match. She was glued to the TV. She didn't realize that a half hour had passed until they said it on TV. Like, when they pointed out, I think the first commercial break comes about 22 minutes in. I think that was the first time that she was like, wait, what's going on? When she realized that it had been 22 minutes before there was a commercial break. This match was electric and was electrifying. And when you watch it, for me, it's a reminder of what makes AEW special and what makes it different than WWE. Because a lot of people online, I posted some clips like I do while I was live streaming. And the very first response to one of these clips was, "These dummies are giving this away for free." And I have to stop and I have to question a few things about that. Number one, why do you care? You're getting something that you would have to pay for free. That's good for you. That's a benefit to you. So good on you. You should be excited, not angry, you confusing person, you. But number two, that's like the weirdest complaint. Because for what it's worth, there is a practical application, right? Like, so the reason they're giving it away for free is twofold. One is it's Dynamite 250. This is the 250th episode. It's a big anniversary show. It means a lot to them. So they're putting on the biggest matches that they possibly can. It's number one. Number two, they're in the middle of their negotiating for their contract, for their TV contract. And putting on a match of this caliber with these stars on live TV on a Wednesday night is going to draw the biggest audience they possibly can. Is it going to draw a big audience? I don't know. I can't tell you. I know I watched it twice, so hopefully they get both of those ratings. That would be great for them, because it was that good. And I'm hoping that as word of mouth spreads about it, that more people are going to go back and watch it after the fact, because this was what wrestling can be. This is storytelling on an epic scale without any words, or with minimal words. I mean, MJF talks a lot when he's wrestling, but still. Were I asked to show somebody without skits, without precursors, show me one wrestling match to show me why you love wrestling, this might be the match I show them. And it's an hour long, which is crazy. Which is crazy to think. But it's that compelling. It's like that compelling. It's that well told. This was like watching a ballet. A beautiful, dramatic, emotional ballet. With one flaw. Just one flaw. They screwed up the shoot. Like the camera work throughout is exceptional. They hit every single spot so well. The camera was exactly where it was supposed to be, everywhere. Except on the finish. Spoilers, obviously. I mean, I've already spoiled it, I guess. But the very last beat, the very last beat is that MJF pulls out the diamond ring out of his trunks and pops him with it, and we didn't see it. They show the ring a few minutes later because he tosses it, and I think they had to find it, which is why it took so long to find it. But we lost it, and we didn't get the shot, and we should have had the shot. Obviously, it was a missed shot. Did it ruin the match for me? No. I think, I suppose you could argue it was on purpose, that I don't know why they would do this, but I suppose there is a world where they were like, oh, wait, he had the ring, but they didn't frame it that way. Taz, I think, says, wait, did he have the ring? They essentially, immediately have to sell, oh shit, we didn't get the ring. We didn't get the shot of the ring. That aside, and I hope, if it was me, and it was my show, and I had cameras everywhere, I would do everything I could for the second airing to, and that was me. For you listening and not watching, That was me editing. That was the sound of me editing right there to re-edit and get a shot of the ring in there, because we should really get a shot of the ring in there. That complaint aside, this is what wrestling can be. Somebody else in my chat was complaining, when are they going to learn that American wrestling fans don't care about New Japan? Don't they? They might not care about the plot of New Japan, because there isn't a lot of it, and New Japan is, a whole other thing to care about. But what we've seen and what has gone on, even in the WWE, has been the New Japanification of wrestling. What is Cody Rhodes, if not that? Where did Cody Rhodes go to get over? Yes, he went to Ring of Honor and NWA, but where did he really go? Where did he really cement himself as a global star? That guy went to New Japan. That guy joined the Bullet Club. What did AJ Styles come from? Why does anybody doing a Styles Clash in any wrestling ring, why does that mean something? They might not know that that's New Japan, but that is New Japan. They might not know, they might not care about Nakamura, but Nakamura and his style is everywhere. There's a reason that he's there, right? They might not realize how much Io Sky, they might not care about Io Sky, but her style is all over the women's division of WWE, right? Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, those guys, yes, they're Ring of Honor guys, but before they were in Ring of Honor, or while they were in Ring of Honor, I guess, they were touring around the world, including Japan. Everybody that you love made their way, especially the guys. Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, as you may know him. Where was he? New Japan. All of which is to say, whether this was a New Japan match or not, which I actually would argue it wasn't. One of the things that I think was most interesting about this match is that it was Ospreay doing as close to a WWE match as you're ever going to see, because that's what MJF does, right? MJF has a very, very, very American style, right? Who is he closest to in style? You can see in his moves how much he loves the Attitude Era, how he is built off of The Rock and CM Punk, right? That those are his two icons that he has shaped himself on, and a little bit of Roddy Piper and Macho Man. Right? That is where he comes from. He comes from 80s and the 90s WWE. That's what he loved as a kid. And that's what he has built his, and John Cena even, right? That is where he has built his legacy on, and that is who he looks like. And it's a tribute to Will Ospreay, that Will Ospreay can not just go as Will Ospreay, but can actually hang with MJF, and the two of them made poetry together. Because that's what this was. So I defy you, I defy you, if you don't care about AEW, or if you don't understand what the big deal is with AEW, just take an hour. If you love professional wrestling but hate AEW, it would be very weird if you're listening to this, or watching this. But either way, this is an hour of your time well spent, because this to me is the power of professional wrestling contained in 1 hour of television. What a thing of beauty that it was. And how lucky are we? That's how I'm left. How lucky are we that we got that for free? on TV on a Wednesday night in July. How goddamn lucky are we? Came out of that match as better people and exhausted, completely exhausted. I needed a cigarette after that, and I don't smoke anymore. We came out of that and we went right into a promo from Mark Briscoe where he's hanging out with the Acclaimed, who are offering themselves up for Blood and Guts next week. Briscoe says he can't just say yes, he needs to turn to his partner to ask. And we are shown good old Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland says, he doesn't like the Acclaimed. He's had his run-ins with them, but he recognizes game salutes game, and they're all going to go together. Mark Briscoe is a lunatic and delightful. Like, I love the weirdness of them just being like, yeah, let's just let Mark Briscoe cut promos all the time. Why not? Let's just do that. Let's just do that for a thing. So more of that is always a delight. And again, it's just like, in a world of things that WWE would not do, that is one of them. For good or ill, I suppose. After that, we got the Learning Tree with Chris Jericho. I've talked about this before. My thing with the Chris Jericho segments, I can pretty concisely explain my problem with it now, I think. My problem is that he is not behaving in a way that a human being behaves. He's behaving in a way that a character would behave. And the closest, I was watching the A&E documentary about The Miz, and I was reminded of when The Miz was doing the Hollywood Elite angle when he was making the Marine 3. That's what they should be doing with Jericho, right? It should be a version of that. It should be Jericho being like, listen, guys, I get it. I'm amazing. Like, I am just the best. This company wouldn't exist without me. I am beyond talented, and you guys are jealous. It's cool. You all look at me and you see brilliance. That is like a subtle pivot from what he's doing. What he's doing now is playing a fool. And that doesn't match with the Chris Jericho that we have known for 30 years, right? Even when Chris Jericho has been foolish, I don't know that you would ever have described him as a fool. And so because of that, it feels disingenuous. And I've talked at length, like at great length, I think, at this point, in these few weeks that I've been doing this, I've talked at length about how being honest and truthful and grounded in reality is really the key to this stuff working in the modern era. And so doing something so disingenuous, I think, is a bad move. And that's why I think it doesn't work for me. In any event, the segment gets interrupted by Minoru Suzuki, who they had set up a few weeks ago, was going to challenge Jericho. Turns out that challenge is going to come true next week for the FTW title. And again, it's a little bit of a I don't really care. It's not much. It doesn't do much for me. We come out of that. We go into a segment with the Elite, who are mouthing off about Blood and Guts. They're cutting a promo. They talk about how Hangman Adam Page is going to be joining them, how the rest of them all have gold around their waists, and how they're going to destroy the AEW team, which my guess is they probably will. Then Mercedes Moné shows up, and again, we're starting to cement this idea that she is a member of the Elite, even though she's not officially a member of the Elite. It seems to me like you should just get it over with and just make her one of the Elite. Like, she has a title, so why not just go with it and just make her one? I'm not exactly sure what the holdup is, or like what their rationale for not doing it is, because it just seems like just do it, get it over with. And then they did this adorable little creepy bit where Okada is super creepy and wants Mercedes to do her little dance because he's hot for her. And again, it's a little like, ugh, but Okada is just so adorable that it works, I think. They also show that Britt Baker has been banned from ringside, or banned from the building, rather. So she is not backstage, which of course means she's going to be, in the crowd. It feels sort of like, wouldn't you rather just say we've doubled security? Seems like enough to me, rather than going all the way out to like show your hand quite that much. We come out of that into Mercedes Moné versus Nyla Rose. This match is interesting because like Nyla Rose is another wrestler. I talked about this a bit about Nia Jax, where like the power dynamic is wonky. Nyla Rose is so powerful and strong and so much bigger than everybody else that it takes a really special performer to put her down, to make it feel like she has a convincing case. And she's a really special performer. She is extremely talented. But I think, when it comes down to it, I felt like she didn't do much of a job coming across like she could actually do the job. Because she's just so much smaller than her. Now, I say all that, and somebody, Scott Sapp from Fightful today, posted a link that someone put up of like a 6'8" super heavyweight getting his ass handed to him by a cruiserweight in an MMA ring. That is incredible. And his point was like, but wrestling fans will tell you that's impossible. But here's the thing. The way that fight went down, when you watch that fight, is the little guy is fighting like hell. And the little guy is fighting in a way that the big guy can't keep up with. So, like, yes, the little guy wins, and the little guy is capable of winning and is capable of beating the big guy. But for the little guy to win, the little guy is, like, taking massive amounts of damage and is, like, going like a berserker to do it. And when you said it like that, that makes sense. That feels like a logical story that you're telling. I don't know that they accomplished that with Mercedes and Nyla Rose. It just felt like a regular Mercedes match, with, albeit an adorable ending where Mercedes pulls out a glove to try and do the Britt Baker oral exam that Britt Baker does as her finishing move, only for Nyla Rose to bite her hand. Because, as we all know, it is a ridiculous finishing move. Their claim, however, was that Mercedes' problem was that she did not have the dentistry expertise that Britt Baker has, which is delightful. Of course, as Mercedes does get she eventually locks in a submission hold. Nyla Rose submits, and on her way out, she stops ringside, and there is a sting in the audience. And of course, that sting is Britt Baker. I wish, considering who Britt Baker is married to, Adam Cole, I wish Britt Baker was dressed up as the devil. I think that would have been delightful. But, you take what you can get. All in all, considering, like this whole episode suffered predominantly from having that hour-long match at the top, because that hour-long match was perfection. And so this match was just sort of like a match. It was fine. We come back from break to find Jack Perry talking to camera about the scene where Darby Allin was beating up Brandon Cutler. And his response to Darby Allin beating up Brandon Cutler is to beat up Brandon Cutler. Weird choice. So yeah, I mean, again, I said this is, one of the best episodes of Dynamite in a while. Still a bunch of weird choices being made. Very strange. His argument is that he doesn't care about anybody but himself, essentially. But he does, because he's a member of the Elite, and he's with those guys, so he obviously cares about them. And Brandon Cutler is a member of the Elite, so by extension, he should care about him. But he doesn't. I'm not exactly sure what it gets us. We come out of that into Mariah May, dressed as Toni Storm and looking sensational. She comes out and, like, I don't want to spend too long on this, but Tony Schiavone called her a bitch. And everybody, like the rest of the commentary guys, and then I was shocked, and then my wife was shocked. We were all just like, ooh, that came off wrong. I think like I don't know what was going on, and they commented that everybody says bitch all the time on what's it called, on Dynamite, on AEW programming, but it felt just yucky. What a yucky use of the word. Like, you really just didn't feel right. Especially because the right word is monster. Like, bitch, when used for a woman, has this derogatory, misogynistic feel to it. And the fact that she's a woman has nothing to do with what she did. The fact that she did what she did is because she's a monster. You know, and I think calling her a monster would have been much more appropriate. And I don't just mean because I'm a prude. Like, because fuck that. But I mean because it felt like disproportionate, and it also just felt very Tony Schiavone like. It's a real weird choice. But Mariah May came out, and you know, it was interesting. She had heat. Like, the audience had heat for her. I don't think they had as much heat as I think they expected. And part of it was she cut this, like, and I know what she was doing, right? Like, she cut this, like, very 1940s-y feel. Like, it felt like it was out of All About Eve. Right, and the theme of it was all about Eve. The end of the promo was literally her saying that from now on it's all about Mariah. So, like, they're doing this all about Eve thing. They're aware that they're doing this all about Eve thing. But Mariah May is fast and funny on the mic, and to have her give this promo at, like, in slow motion feels like a mistake. If for nothing more than it gives the audience a chance to chant what. And I think the fact that they weren't chanting what in unison is probably a good sign, because that means at least they weren't, like, united in apathy or irritation. But, like, for being what is essentially her first promo as a villain, as a major villain, I feel like there was a missed opportunity. I think they could have set her up to do better than they did. And it felt like, for how pitch perfect every other piece of direction for this entire angle has been, it felt like bad direction more than bad writing. She could have been prepped better. I think she could have been directed better. So I think that's a shame. That being said, again, like, having her dressed as Toni Storm is sensational. Having her, like, the content of the promo was really good. And I think, like, it feels like this is going to be very thick and good. And I think she's going to come out of it the other side as a much bigger star. And that's really the goal, right? Like, that's the goal of this entire thing. So I think that's pretty good. We come out of that to a backstage segment with the Bang Bang Gang. It's a recap of the Bang Bang Gang getting stripped of their titles from Collision. And you got to forgive me, I don't remember if we actually saw this on Collision. I don't think we did. I think this is the aftermath of what we saw on Collision. Where they're, like, outraged, and then Christopher Daniels tells them that if they won't take being stripped, then they're suspended. And they're like, oh, okay, then we're okay being stripped. It's a weird angle. It's a very weird, like, I get what it's accomplishing, I guess. I feel like they would have been better off just losing the titles, doing an angle where they lose the titles. And I'm not 100% on why they're doing it this way. I don't quite understand it. I think the, like, there's 4 of us for a trios title is a funny bit. It feels like a Fabulous Freebirds bit, to be honest, which is, you know, on purpose. So, like, why they're breaking it this way feels odd. It feels like an odd choice. And like those guys are not the best actors. Juice is pretty great. But the guns are kids, like they're not super experienced. They're still getting their feet underneath them, and it just feels awkward and weird. That being said, I think them with the patriarchy is going to be super good for all of them. I think we've proven over time that Christian Cage just gets good matches out of everybody. And I think having them work with him is going to just be good for them overall. So I think the net result of it is definitely going to be good. And then we wrapped up the show with Okada versus Swerve Strickland in a non-title match, which again feels like it should have been a title for title match, which you can then break up. Like there's no reason. I mean, like there's no version of this match that doesn't end with a bunch of run-ins, right? Because this match is really about setting up blood and guts. So why not give it some stakes and make it about the titles? Because there's like every possibility in the world that Swerve could win both titles, right? Like I know that he's not going to lose both titles. I know that he's not going to lose the world title, but like it's plausible that he could win the There's no reason that he could lose it. I think it's completely plausible. I think it's completely plausible that he would that he could win it as a storytelling device. And so to give up on that just feels like you're missing out, right? Like you're missing out on an opportunity to give it some more stakes, because the way it felt instead was just like a bit of a filler match. Both guys were good. Again, like it just pales in comparison to what we saw, and it pales in comparison to what we saw from Ospreay and Swerve, a couple weeks ago. And Okada is still good, but he's not the Okada of a few years ago. And whenever you see him, especially in a match like this, like it becomes like slightly more clear. And like the fact that he's a heel, so he's not doing his stuff, right? Like he's not doing the things that we're excited for about Okada. He's essentially purposefully not doing them, right? Has this weird effect because even though he's a heel, he's not really over as a heel. He's still kind of over as a face, which is confusing. It's a very confusing, weird thing about Okada, is that we all still just love him. And because we love him, even though he's a heel, we still sort of want him to do all the face stuff in order to feel like we're getting our money's worth, pardon the expression, which again, considering we just talked about this whole money thing, is maybe weird. But yeah, it was like a little bit of a nothing match, to be honest. Which again, considering I said that this is one of the best Dynamites ever, really does say something about how good that first match is, because I think the whole rest of the show was like, if the first hour was way up here, the second hour was like down by here. Like not as good. But it sort of just doesn't matter, because that first hour was so goddamn good. Swerve Okada ends with run-ins from everybody, and if you're keeping count along, there's only 4 men on the AEW side of Blood and Guts, which is then we reveal who the 5th man is, even though he spoiled it because he did a bunch of press today talking about how he's cleared medically to show up, and that is of course Darby Allin, who repels from the ceiling like Sting. Except for one thing, he's not wearing a trench coat, so you just see him with the like rappel gear on, and it's very strange looking. And Mark Briscoe has to unhook him, and it's not the quick breakaway stuff because you can't do that anymore. So it's just very awkward and a little junky. But you get the big squash at the end where everybody goes after each other. There was a nice long overrun, and that was pretty much Dynamite. I wanted to talk, before I go, I had sort of an interesting experience today that I wanted to talk a little bit about. After I recorded Monday Night Raw recap, I sort of had this thing stuck in my craw about the Wyatt 6 stuff. And I didn't talk about it on the podcast because I couldn't, when I do these, I like to know what I'm talking about. I know, it doesn't sound like it always, but I like to have sort of like a defined point of view on what I'm saying. And so if I feel neutral on something, or if I don't have like a hard opinion, a lot of times I'll just sort of skip past it. And so when I talked about it on the podcast, I talked about how much I loved the Eric Rowan stuff, which I did. And then I just sort of danced past the rest. The stuff that I didn't dance past was that it really bothered me. The Chad Gable stuff really bothered me, that like him pretending to not know, like that he's doing this bit about that he somehow doesn't know that Bo Dallas was Uncle Howdy, when like everybody has now watched the show. So how do we not know? Like, it's just there. Like, he could have just Googled it and he would know, right? Like, it's ridiculous. Like, he lives in the same world that we live in. He's not living in a fictional, like, made up world that doesn't have the internet, right? And if he was, we could say that. Like, he doesn't know how to use the internet. Make that a joke. Make that text. That bothered me. The ending of the episode bothered me, where they, the Wyatt Six, despite having essentially, like, there's no logical reason for them to be able, they appear at the end of the episode by coming out of, they walk out of the gorilla position. Gorilla is the backstage area, right before you come out to the public, in front of the audience, which, if you'll remember, is where they killed or attacked people when they made their debut. So the question remains, like, who let them in there? It seems weird. They shouldn't be allowed in there. You would think that they would get in trouble for doing that. But, maybe I'm crazy. That bothered me. But then the thing that, like, it was more me musing than anything, but that stuck out to me was that they call Taylor Rotunda Bo Dallas. I would call him Taylor Rotunda. In the documentary about Bray Wyatt, they make a point about how he's Taylor Rotunda. It's really about him being Taylor Rotunda. Like, it even there's like a line of dialogue where he talks about, my name is Taylor Rotunda. Like, I am Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt was my brother. And they make such a, like, profound statement about who he is, and how what his job is to live up to the legacy of his brother, and how that is the challenge of his life is to live up to what his brother has done. And for what it's worth, that is also the basis of the storyline with Uncle Howdy, right? Like, if you watch these vignettes, that is what the heart of the vignettes are, is that he has this profound loss of his brother, and the profound loss of his brother has sort of set him in motion. And part of what he wants to do is he wants to do what his brother did. And what his brother did is he found lost souls and he helped them find their purpose. And he himself is one of those lost souls. And the reason he's one of those lost souls is that he had this broken character and he got fired, right? So for my money, if we're trying to tell this story that is, like, grounded in a reality of the story of Taylor Rotunda and ultimately the creation of Wyndham Rotunda, right? Which includes Bray Wyatt and Uncle Howdy and all of the other characters. Those are creations not of Bray Wyatt, but of Wyndham. So if you're telling a story about that stuff, I want him to not be called Bo Dallas. I want him to be called Taylor Rotunda. So I made a video, and that's amongst the things. And that part got clipped for onto my social media, and that thing went viral, and people went berserk about it. So I spent most of the day getting, like, yelled at on social media about it. Which is fine, because I think as of the time you hear this, I will be, like, well over 1,000 followers on Instagram, almost exclusively because of that clip. And it's the most viewed thing I've ever done, I think. And people are just commenting out their butts about it, so it's great. So I'm very happy. I don't mind. It doesn't bother me. But I wanted to talk about it because I think it's really interesting, and I'm just curious what you guys listening and watching this think. And I'd be interested in having, like, a less flame-filled discussion of it. So yeah, if you want to see the whole video, I will put a link to it in the show notes, or if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll throw it up there probably. And I would love to hear what you guys think, so we could talk about it more. Feel free. I have an email address now, so if you guys have comments or things you want to say to me, you can actually email me anytime at josh@wrestlingwithstory.com. Of course, you could also follow me on Instagram at Wrestling with Story. You can, of course, follow the YouTube channel, which is at Wrestling with Story. I'm on TikTok at Wrestling with Story, and I'm on Twitter at Wrestling. I'm actually on Twitter at Josh Fialkov. We also have a Discord, which I will link to in the show notes, and I'll put up on the screen right now. And that is pretty much it for me. I will be back on Friday for SmackDown. We live stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Please join us. And I'll make sure that video is up here for you guys to take. Where is it? There probably. I'm going to make sure that video is up there for you to look at. Please give us a subscription. If you could rate us, review us, share us with your friends. We're looking to build more viewers. As always, thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you enjoy it. Please stick around, listen to another podcast, watch another video, do all that stuff. So much fun having you guys. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. And wrestling forever.